It is the Blitz here on 94.1, San Antonio Sports Star. He's Joe Reinagel. I'm Jason Minix. RJ Ochoa from bloggingtheboys.com joining us now here on the Blitz on the Buyers Barricades guest line. Have you calmed down since Monday's press conference?
It's great to be with you both. I am not going to be calmed down for a very long time. I hate this team and everything about them. And I'm so excited for baseball season to start. I'm so pumped that it's the middle of the Champions League. Golf is picking up. Football is dumb and stupid and meaningless. And anyone that lets it define their emotions is dumb and stupid and meaningless as well.
RJ, can you define what a drought is, please?
This drought that people say we're in terms of a championship game or a Super Bowl.
I made a lot of content out of this, and on some level I felt bad because, it was not a great look for Steven, but, I thought about through all the different just ways I was chopping up this meat, right? Like I felt like a butcher at his expense. I thought about being really, really rude and including like the Webster's definition of a drought. What a tone deaf thing. I mean, like what an insanely tone deaf comment. The way I thought about this was it's confirming everyone's worst fears and thoughts about them. And he was almost proud to do it, which is an insane thing.
Yeah. And I like Steven, but tone deaf,
why?
Perfect. Arrogant, perfect. He's fun to have drinks with, you know that. He's a nice guy. But the fact that even on the podium, he tried spouting off some facts that were incorrect to make him feel better that was going on. And he's right. They've had a lot of great regular seasons. But what do we judge everybody on? Super Bowls, Super Bowl success, which is why I call BS on Reinagel, who says if Dak at least got to the NFC Championship game, I'd get off his back. No, you wouldn't. You would say big game, and he didn't get it done if he didn't get it done. The idea, though, that Brian Schottenheimer is the new head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, and everybody says that's all about Dak. Dak wanted to keep Mike McCarthy. For all accounts, Dak wanted to keep Kellen Moore. But what do you think will be different about this team with Brian Schottenheimer as the head coach?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's not different in that they're sacrificing Dak, right? Hey, well, this was Dak's guy. Y'all get off of us. I mean, Dak was the one who wanted him. I mean, we wanted a better option, obviously. And I think it's telling that the very first comments Schottenheimer had, both in his press conference and after the fact with Jane Slater when he was asked about his offensive philosophy, was we're gonna be a great running team. The run game is important. And the great Bob Sturm from Dallas once put it this way, and I've never been able to shake it when he did. This is a family that built their football kingdom on the back of the NFL's all-time leading rusher. And so on some level, I can logically understand why they believe that's the way to do it. You've got to get back to being Emmitt Smith or whatever the case may be. So I fully expect them to draft Ashton Genty at 12 overall, and I'll be pissed about that too. And I fully expect them to try to reincarnate something that happened almost 3 decades ago and act like it's brand new. And when it fails, find somebody else to be the fall guy. I think that if there's any football sense that they like about Brian Schottenheimer, I don't think they could tell you a lick about how his offenses have performed over the last 20 years. But I think that they know that he runs the ball and that he likes to run the ball. He even said, I'm proud to say that we led the NFL in rushing twice in my time in Seattle. That is music to their ears. They just want to do this because that's how they got where they are.
Well, they had a guy by the name of Marshawn Lynch, if I recall, when that happened. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he was a pretty good running back. So that means that Jerry's going to have to do something and go out and find some players for Schottenheimer to be able to run the football with. And do other things. I mean, there's some holes that need to be filled for this football team. And Schottenheimer may be the guy, but I mean, he still needs some weapons out there to work with.
Yeah. And that's, I think we've all reached the stage of how embarrassing this is to where we're like universally I feel really bad for Brian Schottenheimer. This isn't Brian's fault. Like none of us believe that Brian is the loser here, right? Like he's in many ways a victim. But that being said, even if you do believe, I would find it strange, but even if you do believe that he has this football prowess that you just had to harness at the most focal point of your team in terms of being your head coach, you got to help him. I mean, you've got to do something. I mean, you've got to give him players to work with. You've got to give him talented players. You've got to be aggressive in free agency. You cannot do nothing. You cannot blame Micah's contract or Dak's deal or CD's deal or whatever. You have to get off your butt and do some work. And that is not something that this franchise is comfortable with. In fact, that was one of my biggest takeaways from Steven's little rambling miscues. He brought up that they were the 6th winningest teams in the last 15 years. The reason, what that told me more than anything was he hasn't checked, that information since they were 6th. You know what I mean? So I think right now you could tell Steven, dude, how do you think Isaiah Pacheco is going to do next Sunday for Kansas City? And he'd be like, who? Priest Holmes isn't their running back anymore? I think he'd be genuinely stunned. So I without help, no coach can thrive. And I think that Mike McCarthy's a great example of that. But if they show up and show out and give Shotty a bunch of toys to work with, then maybe this has a chance.
RJ Ochoa from bloggingtheboys.com here on the Blitz. The fact that Will McClay is signing a contract extension today, I think that's great. I don't think he gets enough credit because Jerry wants the spotlight as the GM. Will is the de facto GM, just doesn't have that title. And he's drafted well. Hearing him yesterday talk about his conversations with Shotty, over communicating, and he used that term a couple of different times, tells me that Schottenheimer is very thorough in what he's looking for. He doesn't just say something and you go, okay, I got you. He wants to make sure you know exactly what he's looking for. I think listening to Will made me feel better about Schottenheimer and how thorough I think he is in going over small details.
I agree that it made me feel better. I've become so jaded that I wonder, is he just, spitting the company a line at this point in time? I agree with you that on some level, Will certainly deserves a lot more credit than he gets. I also think he is shielded by Jerry in a lot of ways.
Yep.
We only talk about Will's successes. We don't talk about Will's misses because, Jerry's the one. Jerry meddles. Will makes all the good decisions, and Jerry just interferes with the bad ones. So I find it interesting that, the way he's perceived among fans, just because, we could talk about the stupid trades and the 4th-round picks on this stuff, but they haven't found a player in the 2nd round in a really long time. And that's kind of Will McClay's job. So that being said, though, everybody's operating in harmony now, and that sounds great, and that's awesome. It does feel a little bit like everybody understands, okay, fine, these are the lemons. Let's make the lemonade. And I think that that's what Will McClay is doing. Being frustrated about the fact that it's Brian Schottenheimer isn't productive, obviously, at this point in time. But I think that everyone had to reckon with that reality and say, okay, we had a chance to reset and we may have taken a step backwards.
RJ, you mentioned Ginty a few minutes ago. So let's talk about the draft since we're talking about Will McClay. If Ginty is available, and I think the Cowboys are drafting 12. I'm the same way, but I hear from Cowboy fans that love that pick. And they can't wait to draft Ashton Ginty. And I'm not sure why. There's so many other holes to fill, and you can find running backs elsewhere.
Yeah, there's an idea that I think helped perpetuate that running backs don't matter. They do matter, certainly. They have proper value, but that value is proper. And drafting a running back in the 1st round is a luxury, just based off of positional value. It carries the lowest, obviously, of your standard positions. Obviously, there's kicker and punter and things like that. But the return on investment for drafting a position like running back that high is you're just never going to reach it. You were never going to get the proper return on investment for Zeke at number 4 overall. You can't find any player off the street as evidenced by Zeke last year. But you want to throw a day 2 pick, I still think that's a little bit rich, but you can totally throw a day 3 pick at the position and find somebody. Bucky Irving is the one that everybody mentioned all season long because he went right around when they could have taken him if they hadn't traded away Trey Lance. Cowboys fans look, I'm extraordinarily grateful for Cowboys fans. I've got a roof over my head. I've got food on my table. My wife, my son, we all eat, and thank God for that because of Cowboys fans and, quite frankly, how often they can be a moth to a flame because they see, oh, running back, run fast, score a touchdown. Oh, how cool. This awesome. Emmitt Smith. Yes, yes. And they look at what Saquon Barkley did and what Derrick Henry did and say, I want that. That's cool. You can want that. I'm not against wanting that whatsoever, but this isn't that. I mean, you're not going to drop Ashton Genty in here. And you know what? If you want to go out in free agency and you want to address wide receiver 2 and tackle and guard and defensive tackle and linebacker and get another corner and then another corner and maybe another wide receiver in case your wide receiver 2 doesn't work out, then by all means, you have the green light. I'll be the first one at the pro shop to buy an Ashton Genty jersey. But without properly hedging your bet, it's just diving deeper into this rabbit hole.
You know, and that's true as you think about it that way, RJ. If they're bigger players, if they're active in free agency and maybe even with the first wave of free agency guy, which again, I don't know that happens. So maybe a couple in that second wave of free agency and they feel some needs that will affect what they're going to do in the draft. I'm with you. Day 2, second or third round, maybe. I mean, I do think Cam Scatterby will still be there in the third round. You know, get that guy. But I also know you, RJ, if they took Cam Scatterby at number 12, you would be all over it and lining up to buy that jersey, and everything you just said would be out the window.
Cam Scatterby is the exception who I would throw away all logic and reason for, certainly. But look, he's not going. Cam Scatterby's not going until day 3 of the draft.
Yep.
As much of a bummer as it is to admit. But yeah, that's the thing. And I can promise you both something. And Joe will appreciate this. My family and I, we're going to go play golf at Pebble Beach this spring. I'm super pumped about it. I'm super stoked. I can't wait for it.
We're family. When are we leaving?
It just so happened to work out
that
the dates that were available. Yeah, you have a brand new sink, or you did. I mean, it's old now, but
need a new one.
The only dates that were available were the first wave of free agency. And, you know, I had to make a decision, like, do I do this? Do I not go to Pebble Beach? Whatever the case may be. And I thought, you know what? It's the Cowboys. They're not going to do anything. I guarantee you that when I'm playing golf at Pebble Beach, they are going to try to ruin it. And that is when they're going to dive in the first wave. I promise you.
Yeah, Jerry's listening right now. Oh, RJ's going to Pebble Beach. Yes, we are. We're going to do something fantastic.
Just to ruin his vacation.
Absolutely. Trayvon Diggs, RJ, we were talking to a doc yesterday, and as you know, he just had surgery, last week? That surgery is going to take a long time. Do you expect Trayvon Diggs back this year?
I think so. I think, you know, he'll probably open on the PUP list and, you know, they'll have to activate him and put him on IR and all the kind of procedural things, but I think he'll play. I think I want to believe that DeMarvion Overshown will play at some point. I know your question's about Trayvon Diggs, but if there's one thing that has happened lately, and it's not even the Will McClay extension that I'm pumped about, it's Matt Eberflus as the defensive coordinator. He was so critical in the growth and development of Sean Lee. And he deserved the defensive coordinator job. He just never got it because the Cowboys insisted on Rod Marinelli having that title. We forget that when he went to Indianapolis, he joined Josh McDaniels' staff. The Josh McDaniels situation where he spurned the Colts and Matt Eberflus was able to make lemonade out of that with Frank Reich. I maintain that the process by which the Cowboys are going about all this, where it's just phoning a friend over and over and over again, is dumb and stupid and incompetent and lazy and embarrassing. But they are the blind squirrel in this case, and Matt Eberflus is the nut. I don't care what happened in Chicago. He is going to work wonders for this defense. And honestly, a lot of people can. We've seen, obviously, Dan Quinn and Mike Zimmer do it. And so assuming that Micah Parsons doesn't miss training camp because the Cowboys are, you know, playing stupid games and on their way to stupid prizes, I think that Matt Eberflus is going to be one of the better things that happened.
Almost something positive from RJ Ochoa.
That was pretty good, yeah.
But he felt like he was on that positive off ramp and jerked that wheel back to stay on the negative road.
If you each had to bet right now, is Micah Parsons there day one of training camp?
I mean, just from past history, I would probably say no. I mean,
right?
honestly, the way Cowboys have done things, yeah.
I'm gonna say yes for two reasons. One, Micah wants to get this done. Everything that Micah has said says he wants to get this done. His agent might have another feel towards it, But I do think first year of a new head coach is the one time you do get things done differently with the Cowboys because they know. If it were Mike McCarthy, I might have a different answer. But knowing that it's a new head coach and Schottenheimer, I do think things happen differently this offseason.
I would say two things for that. One, in the first year of Mike McCarthy in 2020, they didn't get the deal done with Dak, and they had to play the franchise tag in. And he did play on the tag and then hurt his ankle and all that stuff. The other thing I would say is what might change the calculus of all this. I got an email this morning that Micah Parsons is doing a live taping of his podcast next week on Radio Row in New Orleans. Micah is going to be very different about this than Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. I don't say that in a negative way, because I don't fault him for anything he could or would say hypothetically. But Micah has a platform. And to your point, Jason, Micah's not afraid to say what he wants. And so this is a very different situation and arena that the Cowboys are getting in terms of negotiations, because Micah, I'm not going to fault him if he talks up or anything like that, but Dak Prescott was a very, very, very good soldier for the Cowboys last year. He could have made things very, very, very difficult, and he did not. CeeDee Lamb held out. You could argue that was making things difficult. Micah Parsons is unique, and I imagine that he will weaponize. And again, that sounds negative. I don't mean it that way, but he will utilize whatever he can to get whatever he wants.
Well, the best thing to do with Micah Parsons is to trade him to somebody else. That's what
Joe,
I say.
You almost had a whole conversation without saying something incredibly stupid. I mean, I know you love Survivor. I would vote you off the island if you had just said that.
Yeah, well, I think it makes the most sense. Look, this team's got so many holes. Sign Micah Parsons. Give him all the money you want to give him, and you're right back in the same situation. You got 3 players eating up a bunch of cap room, unless you've got some gymnastics and you trust Will McClay and Stephen Jones to figure out how to push money aside. Look, this team's got so many holes, RJ. The quickest way to fix them, trade Micah Parsons, get some picks, maybe a player, who knows, and get that salary off your back and rebuild this team. It would happen quicker if you do that.
You don't deserve dessert for a week. So.
RJ, the most important question of the day. Next week in New Orleans, how many hurricanes are you going to drink on Bourbon Street?
Not a single one. I'm going to make it a point to eat anything and everything that I can. I will be, it's the first time I'm ever going to the Super Bowl and not going to be on Radio Row the entire time, although I'll make sure to, jump in and, slap hands with 2 of my favorite San Antonioans. But that being said, I might go to the taste of the NFL. I might go to things like that. So I'm very interested to just try a bunch of food. I want to eat any and every piece of food that I possibly can.
The food is going to be fantastic. So are the drinks there. You need to partake, my friend.
Well, I've got to work. That's my thing. 24/7, 365. Now that leads your business.
We're all working. Over. Question: last year in Vegas, did you get the tequila bottle from Emmitt Smith?
I did not. I left to fly home before then to come see my family. I don't know if you could hear my son is trying to, like a bull, run into my office right now. So that's what I'm anxious to get back
to. Well, let him in. Why are you locking your kid out?
Because he's in the middle of potty trading, Joe, and you're already dropping enough crap on this conversation, so I don't need any more.
Trade Micah Parsons.
RJ Ochoa, bloggingtheboys.com. We'll see you stumbling down Bourbon Street next week, my friend.
Sounds good. Y'all have a good one.
Appreciate it. RJ Ochoa on the Buyers Barricades guest line, where they provide traffic control, rental, and sales for San Antonio and beyond, online at buyersbarricades.com.